Greetings, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime in Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on to Stephen King, my favorite author, as you can see by that proverbial tower of tomes seated behind me, and I welcome you very cordially to a slightly briefer edition of Hail to Stephen King here on The Horror Show, because it has been It coverage crazy all week. We got to see the early critic screening of It Chapter 2 on Tuesday evening. That was myself, Marshall Parker, and our fearless leader, Cecil Laird, and I loved it. I actually, in some ways, think I preferred it more than the kids-only 2017 film, and yet, really, the basis of this discussion here is the fact that, you know, for proper clarification purposes, you know, the actual book itself, everything is told in a chronological order between the two different timelines, for those who may not have actually read that huge, you know, like doorstopper paperweight of a book, and it's over 1,000 pages and whatnot. And that was kind of a misconception among certain people, is the fact that, you know, they're like, oh, well, you know, there's the half with the kids, and then the second half of the book is the one with the adults. And, you know, that's the one thing about the Andy Muschietti film, that it's kind of poured fuel upon that fire of misconception. And so the reason why I loved It Chapter 2 more is because of the fact that when I was younger, especially when I was younger and I watched the original miniseries, and then even the first few times I read the book in my 20s, because I didn't get around to reading it until my 20s, and I've read it probably a half dozen times at this point. And it's funny because when I was younger, I most definitely identified with the kids, more so than anything else. But I'm in my 30s now, and at this point, I mean, it's probably been about 27 years since I was first, since I first saw it. It's been over 27 years at this point. It's technically been 29, because I saw the original miniseries when I was, you know, like, what, 5, 6 years old, you know, back in 1990. And so, as I've gotten older, I identify more with the adults. And it's funny that so many people still bemoan the adult portion of the story, because in a lot of ways, I don't think you can have one without the other in a lot of ways. And I mean, now granted, I had some issues with how they changed the ending in this one, and it did kind of turn into a Nightmare on Elm Street, like different scares here, different scares there, especially in the second half, and I guess even the first half was too, you know. And it is just, with the exception of the interludes, you know, that Mike has, where, you know, it's more about the dairy history and stuff like that, it is actually like a pretty straightforward book, aside from like the, you know, the weird history of Patrick and the you know, the Adrian Mellon stuff and whatnot. But yeah, aside from those little like subplots, it's very just kind of simply structured in the fact that it's like, okay, you know, adolescence, all the scares there jump over all the scares as adults and whatnot, and then, you know, they come together, you know, both as adults and as kids in the sewer and everything. And in the book, as, you know, anyone who has read it knows, that's where they have both of those finales at the very end of the book. They're almost like they overlap each other and they parallel each other. And I adore the book. The book will still forever be my personal, you know, favorite version. It is the ultimate edition. And that was what I was here to briefly talk about, is the fact that there has been chatter recently from Andy Muschietti. Now, originally, Andy said that he was going to do a extended version of the 2017 film with all the kids, because he said that there was a lot of scenes that, you know, fell on the cutting room floor. But I know that some of those scenes ended up being used in Chapter 2 for the flashbacks with the kids. But they did film new scenes with the kids, and that's where it got into the controversial de-aging and some of that silliness, you know, and also altering the pitch of their voices, because some of those kids were going through puberty, and I felt like it was most notable with Eddie and with you know, with Richie, and, you know, Finn Wolfhard and the other kid who showed up in Shazam. Like, you know, they were definitely at that growth spurty type age, and, you know, where, you know, my voice, that's changing around too. I'm getting hair in really weird places, you know. Then I'm thinking Wayne's World right now. But yeah, long story short, there's still a lot more, according to Andy, that was not only, you know, just on the cutting room floor from both chapters, but there was also scenes that I don't know when he would find the time to do them, like where they would schedule more pickups, you know, between the theatrical and the home release, but he said he wants to do this, like, supercut, you know, and as opposed to having an extended of the 2017 with the kids and having, you know, like an extended of Chapter 2, he wants to make one big super cut, almost like if you've ever seen Watchmen, the Ultimate Edition of Watchmen, where they take the Black Freighter and they actually, because there was the director's cut of Watchmen and then there was the ultimate cut of Watchmen, and the ultimate cut was where the bit with the Black Freighter that was separate initially, they actually fit it into the film. God, it's so long. I want to say it's like close to 4 hours, that supercut. But yet, how long would this supercut of it be if it was to combine both of the chapters together? I mean, a lot of people said that they thought it was too long, and yet there's still so much that, you know, they didn't even adapt from the book. And it's twice as long as the original miniseries, and yet still there was so much that they omitted from both the book, and that was also trimmed from both cuts of that film. So, I mean, we're probably talking something that would be in the, you know, the 7, maybe close to 8 hour range, and yet that still probably wouldn't give complete justice to the book. And so, I guess that's really where you debate, you know, should they or should they not do an ultimate cut of this film? I, for one, contend that they should, because of the fact that the reason I liked Chapter 2 more was because it did follow more of the structure of the book and the fact that it jumped between the two different time periods. That's why Marsha Parker actually liked Chapter 2 as opposed to Chapter 1, although she has contended that she's going to revisit the original chapter at some particular point, the 2017 Kids Only one. But I, for one, would love a super ultimate cut, you know. Once again, I don't know when they would find time to have pickups and do some more reshoots and film these additional scenes that were scripted and just still weren't actually, you know, ever put to lens. But I would love a extreme cut of this film, because of the fact that I do personally prefer emphasis upon the adults and the kids, and just having that duality, that balance. That's what I find the most charming and just the most, I don't know, resonating. It's those parallels between the two. And, you know, who the hell knows, you know, if this is actually going to come to fruition or not, because we thought that we were going to get that director's cut of the 2017 film before this sequel came out, and lo and behold, it still never happened. And I think it never happened because of the fact that Andy Muschietti and his sister Barbara did decide that they want to do this sort of supercut. And I mean, hey, it's a pretty wise way to double dip in that regard. You know, I mean, maybe they would put the supercut out in theaters and have like maybe an intermission of some sort, you know, halfway through the film or whatever. But I don't know. That's where it really makes you wonder, if they do go this route, would they intersperse adults throughout, or would they keep it just kids for the first half and then intersperse and, you know, do the jumping back and forth timeline-wise that they do in Chapter 2? I, for one, would love just that commonality of seeing both eras throughout, you know, which you did get to a degree, you know, in the miniseries. Now, granted, the miniseries, obviously, it starts with growing up Mike Hanlon. It starts with, you know, the young girl getting killed and the cycle beginning anew and all that other stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, there is more of an emphasis in the first half of the original 90 miniseries on the kids in the first half, but you do see a bit of both in the second, even if it does focus more so on the adults. So, I don't know. I would love to see the structuring just, I don't know, more reflective and representative of yeah, at least the way King structured his book, because for me, that's where it is the most prolific and where it gets just most of a reaction out of me. But yeah, it's Saturday as this is about to go up, and it's already, Chapter 2 has already done over 10 million on its Thursday preview night. It's done about what, like, it's done about 30-ish, 30-something million on just Friday. They're pegging it not to finish the opening weekend as strongly as the original 2017 film did. And I think maybe some of that derision is because of the fact that, for whatever reason, everybody just seems to prefer the kids' side of the story. I've watched so many different reviews at this point, whether it was from Nostalgia Critic, whether it was from, you know, Stuckman and Johns, whether it was the Collider people. I mean, you name it, I've watched probably like a dozen different reviews, even a couple channels that I wasn't like super duper familiar with, and yet I was just like, oh, I'll watch this review, oh, I'll watch this review. I watched what Campia had to say about it. I mean, these are different YouTubers that I look up to and that I know are some of the biggest and, you know, like best in the business in that regard. And yeah, I mean, general sentiments about this do seem to be they like it, but they don't like it as much as the first half. And I guess there is some merit to the fact that, I mean, if it's a clown that kills children and it's the portion of the story that's being told from the perspective of a child, that would presumably get scarier, you know, but I don't know, I just, as I said, I identify more so with the adults at this point, at least at this point in my life, than I do with the whole, you know, nostalgia of being a child and everything. But yeah, it's on pace to make like around 100, but it's not gonna be the highest opening R-rated horror film of all time, and I believe it ended up, when it was all said and done, being the highest grossing R-rated horror film, not adjusted for inflation, because if it was adjusted for inflation, it would most definitely be The Exorcist. But yeah, as it stands, you know, the original 2017 It is seated, perched on the top of that proverbial mountain, and yeah, more power to him, man. You know, I'm really happy that Marcia liked this film. Cecil did not like it as much, so Cecil does fall into that camp of, you know, Stuckman and certain other people. I know Spooky Astronauts being another chick who we're acquainted with who's out in Australia. But I don't know. For my money, I personally prefer Chapter 2 by a very, very slim margin, but at the end of the day, I would be most fulfilled and most happy if they do, in fact, retrofit and make that super cut that has been hinted at and that Andy was mentioning just recently in a review. So what do you guys think, though? Do you think that we should get it, or should we just let both of those halves reside separately and leave them to be their own beasts? That is the question of the day. And another reason that I'm keeping this Hail episode a little more on the brief side is because of the fact that on Sunday, Sunday, September 8th, which if you guys are seeing this on, you know, Hail to Stephen King Saturday, you know, every spooktacular Saturday, as since we took the foot off the gas pedal and stopped doing Hail twice a week, because we stopped, for most days in our week now, we only do one episode as opposed to two. We've been trying to see if that fits the algorithm better, you know, if that is bringing us better numbers and whatnot. The original It in 2017 was instrumental in just massive growth for our channel, and that wasn't even Hail to Stephen King stuff. I had started doing Hail earlier that year, so this is technically the third year of Hail to Stephen King. I'm creeping up on 200 episodes at this point. I believe this is 178, I want to say 178, 179, something like that. Derail me, or you know, rile me up in the comments, you know, with the clarifying number. Obviously, the number will be clarified once I sit down and actually post this proper, but yeah, nonetheless, to be almost at 180 of these, almost 3 years of doing Hail to Stephen King, I mean, the pilot was back on Cy King's 69th birthday in 2016, so that, you know, that's just speaks volumes about my passion, my appreciation for all of you who have supported the show so massively. And yeah, do you want to see a supercut of It? That is the question. But yeah, on tomorrow, the following Sunday, September 8th, that's where we are going to be doing a live spoiler discussion with the audience. So whereas, you know, we did our regular review and then we did our spoiler review, we are going to be doing a live spoiler stream discussion. So very much looking forward to that. It's presumably going to be myself, Cecil, Marcia, and then Susie Van Slaughter. I'm going to see the film probably a second time later this evening after I get done with some band rehearsal, and yeah, very much looking forward to it. And I'm curious how I will feel about it on a second viewing, you know, because I have given it a few days to simmer and I'm still unrelenting with my love. But I know just getting a second look, especially with a property like this that I love, it'll be one of only a handful of movies that I have watched more than once in the theater this year. I watched Good Boys twice. Yeah, love Good Boys. Hilarious. Adore that movie. I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, second time, and then I watched Avengers Endgame, and I guess It Chapter 2 is going to be, you know, the fourth in that lot. So Please join us for that live spoiler stream. It would be greatly appreciated to, just hear all of you chime in with your thoughts. And, I've been monitoring people's reactions in the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group, which, if y'all are unfamiliar, I run as the sole admin and moderator, a Facebook group, the Hail Ka-Tet, as I so affectionately call it. We've got around 600 different members, so it's not ginormous like some of the other constant reader groups that are out there, but it's a very closely knit Ka-Tet. And, I mean, whether it's, Mikey, Jacob, Mark, my buddies over in the UK, whether it's, Malito, who's in Italy, or excuse me, Italia, what am I saying? Anyway, I mean, plus tons and tons of different awesome peeps all across the States and various other places. I mean, I just love my UK boys. They're the shiznit bam. I mean, Jim, who's here in Arizona. I mean, Garrett Kirby, God, so many others, Nick Oakes, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, and the fact that I'm only mentioning a handful of people, Rachel up in the Great White North, I mean, there's a lot of really amazing people that I count as friends at this point because of the fact that even though we've never met in person, we share a bond and a love over Cy King, and I encourage all of you to jump on there and have some of that palaver with yours truly and the rest of the amazing people that are on there. The only thing I contend is that we keep it courteous, and we keep it kind, and we keep it Cy King. And that also leads me back to something that Cecil and I had a discussion about that I wanted to address with all of you. And that's the fact that I didn't really see a lot of Hail Ka-Tet people specifically that were just being contentious about this to a degree, but Cecil and I have a brotherly relationship, really, at the end of the day. We don't always see eye to eye about stuff. We are both very passionate within our opinions, and Cecil disagreed with my assessment about something in the spoiler review when I was comparing the book to the film, and he contended that, I shouldn't do that, and there is a lot of merit to that opinion. I told him, and I still contend, that I struggle to separate the two because of the fact that I love the book so much, and it's impossible for me not to make those, kind of comparisons and stuff. But bottom line is that he got some grief and some derision for the way that he went about putting his message forth. And the one thing that I do want to say is that, hey, one of my inspirations when I first got into film punditry, I started out as a very, very young kid. One of the first things I ever wanted to be, besides a professional basketball player, and that obviously didn't happen, I didn't quite have the stature for it, but I watched Siskel and Ebert as a very, very young kid, and it just really got me into film criticism. And it's funny because I shifted away from that, and I play music and, journalism and all these other things that I do, but I still hold in high regard the sometimes bitter disagreements that those two would have on their show. Cecil and I get into similar, just differences of opinion, but what I really want to contend and reaffirm is my love and my respect for my dude. I mean, I am, as I constantly say, pretty much his second in command on the channel, and yes, I created Hail to Stephen King. It's my show, and it's the only thing really that Cecil doesn't have a direct part in the creation of. He just kind of lets me do my own thing. But the one thing that I want to remind everybody about is the fact that I doubt very, very firmly that I would have gained just kind of the notoriety and the humbled reputation that I am honored to have, amongst the circles of King readers that I'm acquainted with, if not for the platform that Cecil busts his ass to have created for me, I mean, who knows what the hell Hail to Stephen King would be like popularity-wise if it was on in Fuegotainment as opposed to the horror show. But I highly doubt it would have anywhere near as many eyes upon it, and I highly doubt that I would have the awesome opportunity and chance to meet so many of you and become acquainted as we have, if not, once again, for just the platform that Cecil put so much work and still continues to as the creator and the showrunner. And so, take it easy on the guy, because he got a lot of grief, and I thought it was kind of shitty, and so I just want to reaffirm once more, me and Cecil are tight, man. He's in a lot of ways my best friend. I mean, and it's weird when, one of your best and closest friends is also somebody you work with, and some may contend that that's a conflict of interest. I disagree. I feel like it is great to, you know, work and have as a colleague one of the people that you are closest with. And, you know, I have a lot of respect and admiration for the guy. He is pretty much like, I'm the oldest of three boys, and Cecil is pretty much the closest equivalent to a big brother that I've ever had. So I love the guy, and I just wanted to, you know, just clear the air about all of that and just say, hey, we're allowed to disagree, and sometimes him and I disagree in impassioned manner, and, you know, that should not give anybody ammunition to go after him or anybody else like Marcia, who really disliked the 2017 film, whatever the hell it may be. You know, the one thing that I will always contend is that, you know, film and art of any kind is subjective, and we all react differently, and we just, I mean, it makes us all feel different things, you know, and it's, I mean, that's what makes it so beautiful, is the fact that one man's trash is another man's treasure, and, you know, all of those different things. And I mean, we're all complex, distinctive, different people, and we should all respect each other's opinions, even if, you know, even if that opinion is drastically different than yours, you know. I mean, you are more than welcome to say, I thought It Chapter 2 sucked. You know, I've talked to a lot of people who didn't like it very much, you know, but nonetheless, let's be respectful and let's be mindful of all of that, you know, whether it's the comments here or whether it's in the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group, which once again, I implore all of you who are interested to go and check out. And how about that supercut? Let's get that damn supercut done, Andy. You know, get on that shizzle. I know you're going to be busy with The Flash coming up, which is his follow-up film, as has been confirmed, but yes, I hope that he does not push it by the wayside, and I hope the film crushes, makes a lot of money, and makes a lot of fans of people that are super familiar with King, and those who may just be like a casual fan of some sort. So once again, if you want a non-spoiler review of the film, we have that here on The Horror Show. We also have an extensive 15-minute spoiler discussion where the aforementioned, you know, incident of disagreement transpired, but yes, make sure to check all of those out. Make sure to join us for the live stream on this Sunday the 8th, which is technically tomorrow, you know, and about 24 hours from when this is being finished filming. And I have been Jaime and Fuego. You can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, obviously here on YouTube, but not just on The Horror Show. That's right, yes, my personal YouTube channel is called Infuegotainment. If you go youtube.com/Jaime and Fuego, or if you just search Infuegotainment, you will find it. I've been doing a lot of Star Wars coverage this year, leading up to The Rise of Skywalker. And boy, what else? I mean, comic coverage, lots of great films that I've seen this past year, whether it was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I keep wanting to say Once Upon a Time in Mexico for whatever reason, and yet I was not a big fan of that movie, as much as I love Robert Rodriguez. I mean, From Dusk Till Dawn is my favorite vampire movie of all time. I love Sin City, I mean, yeah. But anyway, yes, reviews of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Booksmart, Good Boys, Wild Rose, which is one of my favorite films of the year. The list goes on and on and on, so there's lots of fun stuff to see there. However, you're obviously here for spooktacular coverage, so if you're like, no, Fuego, I don't want to see, you know, more discussion about stupid comedies and, you know, indie dramas and stuff like that, well, sorry. Stay here on The Horror Show and make sure to like, share, subscribe if for whatever reason you were sitting watching this Hail to Stephen King video. And yes, Cecil and I are actually putting together, with the input of the girls, a super playlist of, we've got like over 3,000 episodes of The Horror Show at this particular point in like the 5 years or so that we've been doing it. And yes, if there is a particular Hail to Stephen King episode that you thought was the shiznitto bam, snip, snap, snit, you think it needs to be included, I'm trying to like pick my, I don't know, my like top 5, top 10 episodes, something like that. I know the one that had the most viewership, and that was, you know, Castle Rock and the extended Kingverse or whatever. So that is my most watched Hail to Stephen King episode. But if there is one that you think needs to be included in the proceedings, let me know in the comments below. It is supremely appreciated. And then lastly, I have to give a shout out to CP and Will Escridia, because every Monday I jump on there 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern to do a show called Show Business. Myself, Lindsay Mimsey, and CP, the fearless captain of that particular channel. We talk about weekend box office. That has just happened because we do it every Monday evening, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, as I already stated. But yes, we also discuss some of the news of the past week, and we look ahead to the following weekend, and we make some box office predictions based upon that. So that is basically going to be the end of the proceedings today. I extend a grande gracias once more and say until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sin amigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. Say thank you, but I am hopeful that we get to share more of this Psy King palaver sooner rather than later. And until that instance occurs, remember to stay scared and read Stephen King. Read it, or listen to it on a 40+ Audible. It's time!